So thank you for joining me for another episode of Rugspirations, where we get to meet modern rug makers from all over the place. And today we have Winnie Glavine from Newfoundland. I'm so excited. I feel like we have been friends forever, and yet I know we've never met in person. We will one day.
We will.
But I feel like I've known you for a long time. Even though we only talk rug cooking, I don't know a lot about you otherwise. But I really feel like it's one of those connections that I was meant to meet you. So I'm so glad I did. So thank you, Winnie, for agreeing to do this and talk about your rug making process with us.
Well, it's so nice to be here. And yes, you're right. It seems like we've known each other forever. And there's not a whole lot to know about me, actually, because it seems like all I do is think and breathe and eat rug cooking, except that I have two wonderful children, great son-in-law, fantastic husband, and two of the best little grandsons so far. Who knows, might get another grandchild one of these days, but that's what I have.
That's what you have so far. Well, that sounds like a pretty full life to me.
It is a full life, yeah.
And whereabouts in Newfoundland? I know a lot of us who are not familiar with Newfoundland just say Newfoundland as if it's one little place, but I know it's a very big place.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, Labrador alone is called the Big Land for a reason, because it is humongous. And the island is Newfoundland, where I live, is also huge. People sometimes think, well, we'll just run over for the day, but you won't get far in a day over here, because it is a big place. And I'm on the East Coast, just outside the city of St. John's, which is the capital. And it's a very, very old city. We like to claim that it's the oldest city of North America, but others like to claim their cities as well. So, but yeah, it's I live near the sea, but I don't live on the sea or close. I don't live like that I can reach out and touch it. I grew up on the water, but I live about maybe a 3-4 minute drive from the water.
Oh, that's pretty close to me. That would qualify.
Yeah. One of the rooms here, one of the windows here, you can see the sea off in the distance. But the Atlantic Ocean, at least here in Newfoundland, is not as warm as it is in Florida or someplace like that. And so the romanticism around living on the water is exactly that. It can be very cold living by the water, and I well know that because I grew up there. My father was a fisherman, so so I'm okay, to live just a little bit away from that cold northeasterly wind, and but get to the water whenever I want. So yeah.
Oh, one day I'm going to visit.
Yeah, it's a neat place to visit.
Yeah.
Neat place to live.
Well, and you know what? I have a friend who her sort of heritage is from Newfoundland, and she just packed up and moved last fall and spent their first Christmas there this year, and she is loving it so far.
Good.
So yeah, I'm going to visit. A few people I know now.
Yeah, we don't have we don't have all the big fancy malls and all the big fancy high rises and all that stuff, but we have what we need, and we can make and do what we want. So yeah, it's a pretty neat place, and we have lots of fresh air, and we complain about the healthcare, and we complain about the lack of jobs and the lack of this service or that service, but everybody across the country complains.
Yeah, I was going to say, right now I could complain about a few things myself with
yeah.
Well, we'll get right into our questions. I ask the same questions of all my guests, but we never know where it'll take us. So my first one is always, what or who got you started into rug cooking or rug making?
So it's very interesting, because my mother, even though she was older, I'm the second youngest of 9. So my mother was a real knitter, but her mother, my grandmother, was the rug hooker in the family. And when I was, I would say 6 or 7, I came to realize that my grandmother was coloring fabric with fabric. I didn't know it was rug hooking. I didn't know anything about that. But I was fascinated by, she was coloring fabric with fabric, and that was amazing to me. And then, so by the time I was 16 or 17, which was in the mid 70s, now I'm telling my age, I asked my grandmother to teach me. And she was kind of not doing it as much anymore. So I was kind of thinking, well, maybe she just teach me and I can continue on. But her answer was to me, don't be so foolish. Rug hooking is work. If you want a mat, just go buy one.
Oh.
And so her thought was exactly that. We didn't do mats for the sake of doing mats. We did mats because we needed them, you know. And mats were put on the floor or on the beds to keep them warm. But, you know, back in her day, which would have been, you know, the early 1900s, when she would have been hooking mats, it was work. They weren't artistry or necessarily pretty, you know, and they weren't for the walls. So they were for the floors and for beds. So that was her thought. Little did she know it would turn into an art form.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so that's and then I had been sick for a year, not seriously ill, but enough to, you know, keep me off work and drag me down a bit. And I needed some respite. I needed something. And I just happened to be at a friend's house in beautiful Kings Cove on the Bonavista Peninsula. And her sister-in-law was over from another beautiful place, Fogo Island. And Lillian was hooking a mat, and Alice, my friend, was actually, she was finishing a mat for her mother. And I'm thinking, like, what are you guys up to? You know, like, my grandmother used to do this, and what's this all about? So that was my first introduction really to rug hooking as an adult. And Lillian said, you should come to rug school. I had no clue what rug school was. I didn't know anything about a guild or anything. But while I still wasn't able to drive, I got my husband to drive me 3.5 hours to the rug school in August. I went in with my checkbook and my overnight bag and nothing else. And so that's it. You know, I had the best teacher, Vanessa Fancy, was the best teacher because she believed in me. The first night I couldn't pull 6 loops, couldn't keep them up, not 6 loops. And I was packing up to go home. And Vanessa said, oh, you can't go home. And I said, oh yeah, I can't do this. I came, like, I needed something, but this is not it. So I'm going.
This isn't working.
Yeah, this is not it. And but she said, no, you can't go home. And I said, yes, I can go home. I'm going to go on. And she said, no, your husband dropped you. You can't drive. There's nobody else taking you out of here tonight because there's too many moose on the road. So I suggest you go to bed, rest, and come back to me in the morning. And the next day it was good. So I really appreciate that Vanessa, you know, saw me struggling, but figured that I could do this. And I haven't looked back since. And that was in 2003. And the minute I got back home, still not able to drive. My husband had to drive me everywhere. But I put it on the radio, the local radio, that I was going to teach rug hooking. And at the local high school, you could use your high schools then. Yep. And I had 27 people show up.
Wow.
So yeah, and it was great. And we just started in and went from there. I didn't know anything except how to pull loops, but you know, we found some hooks and we found some frames and we found some burlap, it was at that time, and we started in. Yeah, and almost wonderful. Everybody who came was like me. They needed something. They needed to get out of the house, and they needed other people for whatever reason. And so I've been teaching ever since. But I actually only got certified in 2012. So yeah, and I always had that thing that, you know, I might not know anything, but I know more than the person next to me who knows nothing. So I can teach that, and then I can learn something else and I can teach that. So, and that's what we did. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That is so beautiful. And I can relate to needing something, you know, those times in your life where you just need something, and
you just need something,
or, you know, new circle to support you.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite part of your process? Like, is it the planning a new rug, or like just pulling the loops of working on them, finishing, admiring, collecting supplies can be a whole other element? Is there something you're like, oh, this is it, it's my favorite?
Yeah. You know what my favorite part of rug cooking is? When I wake up at night with that idea. Oh, you know, like 3 o'clock in the morning, all of a sudden I wake and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that is like, how am I going to bring that to life? And it might have been because I started a workshop with somebody, or I was thinking about a workshop, you know, that I was going to take with somebody, you know, like Sue Perry's, I took this workshop from Sue Perry, I think it was last year, with the Fairy House. And it was a 10 by 10 fairy house, you know, and Sue is amazing. I love taking a workshop with Sue Perry. And but it was a wall hanging, and you can see, but I don't have any other place for stuff on my walls. And I thought, how am I going to turn that into something that the boys would like, you know? And that came to me in the middle of the night. You know, I'm going to make that fairy house into a 3D piece with all kinds of stuff on it, you know, like a swing and chairs and all kinds of other stuff. And so, yeah, so that I have many sleepless nights because I'm in process, you know, like thought process.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I made my fairy house look like a tree.
It was lovely. It was so lovely. Yeah.
And yeah, so I think that's the best part for me.
Yeah. Luckily, I don't tend to wake up at 3 a.m. with those ideas, but that feeling you get of excitement of like a new idea or a new solution to a rug that you've been struggling with is so like, that's a high for me too.
Oh yeah. And Sue Perry is she's just so generous with all of her knowledge. And she's so thoughtful, you know, when she's teaching, and, you know, and she's so giving. So you can pick up on all this little stuff from her and then, like, you know, process it through your own brain. And it's just so much more. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to reach out to her. I have to reach out. I'll need to interview her too.
Oh yeah. There you go. Yeah, absolutely.
Is there something in your sort of rug hooking journey that you wish you'd learned earlier, or somebody had told you so that you would save some stress? Or maybe it's just something you would love all rug hookers to know?
The only thing that I think, if I were to say I have one regret about rug hooking, is that my grandmother didn't teach me when I asked her to back in the 70s. I wish I had learned it then and her process. And I really think for rug hookers to know, I think that you don't be afraid. Like, don't want other people to like your work. You know, you need to like your work, and don't be so hard on yourself, because, you know, most of my mats in the early days were ridiculous. Like, you know, what was I thinking? Right. But the biggest part was that I just needed to hook. I needed to pull the loops. I didn't care what it looked like. And I wasn't smart enough to just pull straight lines and do hit and miss. I was trying to create stuff, but my mind was so busy, you know, with everything else that was going on in my life, and, you know, with work and home, and it was just so full. I just needed to pull loops because I needed to get away from that. So it wasn't creating. So I think it's okay for people, if you're stressed to the max and you just need to pull loops and nothing comes out of it, be comfortable with that. It's okay.
Yeah.
But when your mind clears and you're able to, you know, take your time, then take the time. And if it takes you a year to do one piece that's 10 by 10, that's okay, you know, and don't let others criticize it. Don't just block that out.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Because they don't know what's in you. You know, nobody knows what's in you. So you just need to, you know, tune out all that noise. And if somebody says, my gosh, that's lovely, say, you know, you don't need to have a big head either. Thank you very much. That's wonderful. Yeah. But you have to like it. Yeah. You know, I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the gifts of rug hooking too, is most of us, we're just doing it for ourselves. Like, so really do it for yourself. Like, do what colors feel good, what fabric feels good, whatever feels good. Absolutely. Just do it for you. And that's, I mean, if you know, some of the rug hookers are artists from, you know, they paint, they take pictures, they're so multi-talented, and that's wonderful. But, you know, with that also comes the stress of having to produce to meet that. Right. Yeah. There, you know, I would say the large percentage of us aren't there, and that's okay. Just have fun with it. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Do you have a favorite material, tool, frame, something that you were just like, oh, if I didn't have this, it would not be as lovely? Like, yeah, I started out using burlap, the Scottish weave burlap. I don't know if you remember that, and that was a great foundation fabric.
For me though, it was after I taught a grade 6 class of 41 students through the Art Smarts program, and I put all those kids together. I was inhaling all that dust, and I thought, oh, I can't do the burlap anymore. I have to switch to linen. So linen is definitely a favorite of mine. And if I had to only hook with t-shirts for the rest of my life, I would be quite comfortable with that. I love hooking with t-shirts still. It was always my first love, and it will be my last, even though I use other fabrics, yarn and whatever, but t-shirts is for me. That's
And
it.
when you learned at your first rug school, were they using t-shirts?
No, I
No,
was so
okay.
disappointed. It was yarn. And I
Oh,
thought, like, my grandmother used scraps of whatever she had around. So when I went, I'm thinking, okay, maybe I should take some clothing and stuff, but I didn't know what to take. And I said, oh, they'll have all that. They told me they'd have it all.
yeah.
But when I got there, it was yarn, and I was really disappointed with that because
Interesting.
I'm a real recycler, upcycler, that was in our DNA, use what you have, right? So, but the next year I went again, and Ruth Chaffee was teaching with t-shirts. So then I'm on that road then, right? So yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Can you describe, and this is a tricky one, but what does rug hooking or rug making do for you? Why do you keep doing it? What's that feeling about?
Yeah, well, rug hooking is not work for me. And I have to tell you that in 2003, I needed something, and I still need that today. So rug hooking is that for me. It gives me focus. I never lose my interest in pulling loops. Even if I just pull loops, I'm okay with that. I need rug hooking is my escape from whatever else is going on that I need escape from. Things aren't the same for me now. Like, I'm older, I don't have the same stresses that I had raising my kids, or working in sometimes places that were really high energy and really sometimes not very nice places to work, right? So and you had your bills, and you had this and you had that. So I needed something from that, to escape from that. And so rug hooking is that for me. Still today, obviously I don't need it as much now, I don't think, but I definitely need it. I definitely need rug hooking in my life, yeah,
And
in some form or another.
I don't usually ask this question, but I'm going to add it. I mean, I know I love to teach, and I have trouble describing it, but I see you as one of those people, like, you're not just, and I use the term just with quotes, a amazing rug hooker, but you're also an amazing teacher that seems to ooze passion to share rug hooking with other people. Is that just something you feel the need
Yeah,
to do as much as rug hooking itself, is like teach and share your experience?
yeah. Well, so we grew up in a household that, where everybody was welcome. It doesn't matter how many people were sitting around the table. If somebody else dropped in, there was always room, right? Share whatever you have. So I feel rug hooking has given me a lot. It's given me a sense of calm. It's given me the opportunity to meet people. It's given me an opportunity to learn. It's just so I want to share that. I guess sharing is also in our DNA. I want to share that. So I want to share I want people to see that you can get a lot from this without putting a lot of money in it, because I didn't have any money. I had 2 kids in university and a husband doing a master's program, when I started out. So I want people to know that you don't have to spend a lot of money to create beauty, and you can create, and you can have space for yourself, because the world is busy, the world is crazy, and every day it's getting worse. So you can't handle all that crazy stuff unless you have peace of mind, and that's what I hope I help people find is a peace of mind and a creative outlet, basically.
Well, I think you do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I want to share one of your pieces. Luckily, we get to see some of the beautiful ones behind you, but I will do a close-up of one that you shared with me, the town of Torbay, which is a stunning piece here. Do you want to tell us about it, Winnie?
Yeah, I just love that piece. Thank you, Robin. So this piece is a commission, and it was almost like I was meant to hook this piece because the town of Torbay had built a new municipal building and they wanted some art in it. And so, as they would do for any other contracting work, they put out an RFP for artists to, submit their thoughts for art for the building. But they put it out, like in the business section of the newspaper or wherever. And so I guess months went by from what I understand. And then I got this email asking me would I consider to put in a proposal for art? And, the deadline was done. So I just ignored it. I thought, well, this showed up somehow. So about a month or so later, I got another email. We sent you an email earlier. Would you be interested in putting a proposal forward for some art for the new municipal building? I'm not in Torbay and I don't know a lot about Torbay. And again, the expiry date was there. So I thought, okay, I should at least answer this email. So I wrote back and said, I'm really sorry to have missed this deadline because I would have put in, but, I just want to know that this is the second email I've gotten. So right away, like minutes, I had this email back. Oh, I'm so sorry. I should have changed the expiry date. We didn't get enough response. And now we're sending it out to individual artists. So I put in a proposal to teach the people of Torbay how to hook mats and have them hook mats that would create this beautiful nautical scene for one of the spaces. Like they have 5 big spaces, including mermaids and funky fish and all kinds of stuff in this hallway in the basement. And I didn't hear from them for a couple of months. And then all of a sudden I had this email asking me would I produce 2 pieces, one just a standalone whale tail and another of the history of Torbay, a large piece, approximately, at least maybe 10 feet long by 3 feet. And so I wrote back and I said, well, I didn't put in this proposal, but yes, if this is what you want, I would be interested in it. And so then we had a meeting and, we talked to them and I got kind of idea that they didn't know what they were looking for. But they knew what space they wanted it. So we went and had a look at the space and I thought 2 by 8 is going to be big enough in here and asked for some pictures. They wanted a history, but they didn't want a chronological history of Torbay. But they wanted to show how the town had grown over the years. So they did give me a couple of pictures. The pictures actually they gave me was the one with the church right there and those few buildings right around the church. Right, that's what they thought was the oldest church, the first church in the town. And they gave me also a picture of the horse with the dray cart down by the water.
Yeah.
And the only other notes they gave me was that there was a bridge, that connected one side of Torbay to the other. And they wanted that bridge in there somehow because it was where people met and, lovers met and friends met and women met to talk. The bridge was important because at one point in the history, the community was separated by religion, but people met at the bridge.
Okay.
Anyway, and that's it. That's all they told me. So I had to start doing research. And luckily for me, there were a couple of books written by local people from Torbay about the history of Torbay. So I was very lucky in that. So from those books, I got a lot of insight. The community was originally called Torbay, 2 words. The bay itself is still called Torbay, but it's spelled differently and it's spelled in 2 words. But the town today goes by the word Torbay. The 4 corners are the 4 nations that actually, held power over Torbay: the English, the French, the Republic of Newfoundland and Canada, because we were our own country for a while.
Yeah.
And I did put the church in, but I came to discover that on the far side where you see the wharf over there, there was actually a lean-to that was used as the original worshiping place. On the far left-hand side, you can see an orange and green flag on the back. That's because when their census, the first census was taken, all of the names of the people in the community, were listed, and some were listed as Anglicans and some were listed as Roman Catholics, but they were all in the house together, which, was the way it was in the early history. But then over time, it changed where Catholics stayed on one side and Anglicans stayed on the other, kind of thing. But it's not like that anymore now, thankfully. The sheep in the lower right-hand corner, the government of the Republic of Newfoundland gave the town of Torbay money to start sheep farms in hopes that we would have a woolen mill down there. That lasted for a while, but not so far. Looking at the sheep was a little girl dressed in a soccer team, because Torbay is known now for its sports, complexes and different sports, that they really encourage people to be active from very young to seniors. The houses up on the back, the three colorful houses, is today's houses. And, so we've gone from, whitewash houses to those colorful houses up on the back. I was actually down Torbay one day, and this purple and yellow sky was what I saw. So I thought that had to go in.
It's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you. The horse and dray horse was, the horse would, when the boats would come in, they would use the horse and the dray carts to carry the fish up, to the fishing stages and processing buildings that they had, and the flakes and so on. And as you can see, all throughout, there are different dates from early 1575 right through. So those are dates when the first school was open, the town was incorporated, the nuns came to town. When there was all kinds of little things that would happen in the town that were significant dates for the town. On the water, we have several different sized boats. We have a flat right in the beginning, and a dory. The yellow one's a dory. The white one with the red is a skiff, and that's actually my father's fishing boat.
Oh.
And then so you can see how the fishermen actually advanced from the flat to the dory to the skiff, and then tied up over on the wharf, on the government wharf. All government wharfs here have gold around them. Is my brother's pleasure boat over here. It sleeps 8 cabin cruiser. So you can see how the times have changed from the flat to, the boats coming in the harbor now are cabin cruisers and yachts and so on. And in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see a plane, and actually Torbay was built primarily for fishing, but it grew because our first international airport was in Torbay and is still in Torbay. So it's called St. John's, but it's in that landmass, right? So and the Hudson bomber actually had to land. It was built for the Second World War effort, and the Hudson bomber was one of them. It actually landed the day before the airport opened, the runway opened, because it was stormy and it had to come in. So that's the Hudson bomber coming in. But I can't see it because our pictures are blocking it. But over where the sky is yellow, there's a pirate ship leaving, and John McNutt's name is there. And he was a pirate that actually lived in Torbay, and his ships would land in Torbay, but they would walk overland then to pillage the city of St. John's, which was actually a pretty good walk. And but they were hidden in the town of Torbay from St. John's. Nobody, even though they were around a couple of points, only around a couple of points, but they were actually hidden from the town of St. John's. And that bridge I talked about is just over down from the church, kind of on a diagonal to the right above where Lamy, the bridge is down there. And they wanted that bridge in for those reasons I said earlier.
Yeah.
And then to clue all that up is, I actually started the piece when I found a poem that was written by Jack Dodd. And the chorus of it was, and when my days are ended and God calls me away, I hope they lay me where I loved in the valleys of Torbay. And I thought that set the whole mood for this piece.
Oh, yeah.
And the whole piece is hooked with a t-shirt and a little bit of velour. And that's it.
Oh, and it's about 8 feet long, you said.
It's 2 feet by 8 feet.
Yeah. Wow.
And it was so easy to hook. It was amazingly easy. I don't think I pulled out a loop. Every loop I put in was fine. And right next to the little girl, although you can't see it, or down by the bridge somewhere, there's a rabbit, because Levi thought every mat should have a rabbit. So there's a rabbit in there.
Oh, fabulous.
Somewhere.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
I want to go and touch it. I feel like there's like, the richness in the loops and the texture too, that just add to it in person.
Yeah, and they actually loved it. It was supposed to go in a room, like a meeting room behind their council chambers where most people would not see it. So I drew it all up on brown paper and I went back and forth a couple of times, but I could tell like they weren't seeing it. So I only hoped that they were going to love it, But when I actually sent them a picture, one of the girls sent me back an email, and she said, that's not going in a meeting room. That's going in our front entrance. So everybody can see it. And it's really an honor to have it in, and it was like I was meant to hook it. It's weird, but it was like I was meant to hook it. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, it's a treasure.
Thank you.
It's a treasure.
Thank you for letting me talk about it. I love talking about that piece.
Oh, well, it's an honor to see it and understand the whole history and everything behind it too. Is extra special. Well, on that note, I don't think we could say much more. So thank you so much, Winnie. That was such a pleasure. And I feel like more towns should do that. Like my wheels going like, oh, I'd love, like my hometown is a tiny little town of 4,000 people. And I don't think it's changed much. They need.
Yeah, you could have a piece like the city of St. John's came looking for, they put out this thing about acquiring art in 2020. They wanted new art for the city of St. John's. So I submitted a piece of cats looking out the window, because in St. John's we have all these row houses, and when you're walking along, there's always a cat looking out the window.
Yeah.
And I had an old window from Forest Road, which is right in this downtown. I just happened to be walking along and they were taking out the window. So I asked if I could have the window, and so I put the picture in it, that took out the glass and put a mat in it of cats looking out the window with the living room all behind it, And when I submitted it, the city of St. John's purchased that because they thought it was really representative of the city. Every house in downtown has a cat, or 2 or 3. So anyway,
awesome.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
I'll just say for people watching, hookedcreations.nl, short for Newfoundland, your website, and below this on if you're watching this on YouTube, there will be more information on how to contact Winnie if you want to hear about more of her classes. Lots online too, so you don't need to be in Newfoundland to get classes from Winnie. You can be anywhere, although in person would be extra special, but for now, hookedcreations.nl for more details. So thank you so much, Winnie. And I look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Me too. Take good care of yourself, Robin. See you.